Now, at the start of this hour, we spoke a little bit about the UAE, where some reports suggest that the UAE has now launched strikes on Iran. Let's discuss this with Hadley Gamble, the journalist, intimately aware of the UAE. You used to live there and all the rest of it. I mean, what are you hearing?
Well, so far, at least, we've only seen these reports coming seemingly from Israeli media. They haven't been officially denied that I know of so far by the UAE. The reports suggesting that the UAE had carried out strikes potentially on a desalination plant in Iran. Those of us who have been watching this closely would say if you're going to hit someone, you hit the communications tower, you hit the military infrastructure, and you hit the desalination plants, obviously. This is a big, important factor in terms of when you're cooling oil and gas infrastructure, when you're cooling nuclear infrastructure, for example. But again, no confirmed reports, at least so far, from the government saying that this has been done. This is a country that's managed to stay out of this, at least so far. They've been playing defense as opposed to playing offense. What we do know is that yesterday, His Highness, the President of UAE, Mohammed bin Zayed, was visiting those who'd been injured in hospitals in the UAE, and he essentially came out with his first, on-camera comments since the start of this conflict, and he was saying that when it comes to the UAE, that it's going to protect itself against all threats, and that they have a thick skin and a bitter taste, if you will. They're a bitter prey, which was essentially a warning to those who would continue attacking them in Tehran. But taking a step back and looking at this sort of big picture, this is a country that, as well as the United States, has been pretty tough, for example, on the UK government for not stepping up as an ally. Yes. We've seen the French taking the reins there. We've seen, as well as South Korea and the Italians even offering support to the UAE. But where are the Brits?
There's nothing more important than keeping your money and your identity safe online. And with so many VPN options available, choosing the right one can be pretty daunting. But this video's sponsor, ExpressVPN, is making the choice easier for GB News viewers. ExpressVPN is offering up to 75% off, plus 4 extra months free. That's top-level security from just £2.49 a month, and you're covered by their 30-day money-back guarantee. So just click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code now. Remember, when you're online, you are often sharing personal data, so hackers can steal your information, your passwords, your photos, and your bank details in just seconds. But ExpressVPN encrypts your connection, making it virtually impossible for hackers to access your personal information. So why choose ExpressVPN? Well, it couldn't be easier to use. With just one click, you are protected. And ExpressVPN uses military-grade AES 256 encryption, which is the same standard trusted by the US government to guard their classified information. With their new tiered plans, you can protect up to 14 devices at once and manage passwords securely. Live chat support is available 24/7, and it typically connects you in under a minute with a real person. Click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code to get up to 75% off ExpressVPN, plus 4 months extra for free. Start protecting yourself today with ExpressVPN.
And fascinatingly, when we talk about the hundreds of thousands of Brits in the region, a huge proportion
You'd think
of them
they'd want to
are
protect
in the
their
UAE.
people.
And yet, why is it that the UAE is being so targeted by Iran? It doesn't seem like it's an aggressive country. I mean, why on earth is the likes of Dubai being hit?
So my two-pronged thought on this one is that not only is this a country, of course, that has signed on to the Abraham Accords. They were the first country in the Gulf Arab states to do that, to create an ally in Israel, which was a significant moment. This was one of the things that U.S. President Donald Trump claimed as a major victory during his first administration, and that raised the hackles of many in the region. But also, this is the biggest, global city in the region. And that means that, if you're Tehran and you want to get more bang for your buck, you're going to continue to hit Dubai, because that means you have maximum amount of eyes for that destruction. Because, as you know, journalists from all over the world are there putting out on social media, putting out on various news channels, every single hit that Dubai has taken. And there haven't been that many, given the barrage of drones and missile strikes.
And so it's really about Iran trying to sort of puff itself up like a peacock.
Maximum damage.
Appear more powerful, perhaps, than it is. And yet, strangely, the targets have been civilian. They've been hotels. bills.
Yeah.
I mean, is that part of the same strategy?
No doubt. It's about hitting the economy where it hurts. I mean, the Dubai-based economy, the non-oil growth has been significant over the last few years. I mean, they've really moved away from that reliance, at least in Dubai, on oil. And that's something Abu Dhabi, obviously, oil and gas is something that fuels their economy. But remember that this is a country that's really tried to move beyond fossil fuels. I want to take a step back, though, and talk a little bit about Iran versus the United Kingdom versus the United States. I think this relationship is fascinating. Just simply from the American perspective, we've heard Donald Trump coming out and saying too little, too late. Tony Blair's even gotten on the bandwagon and said this isn't how you treat your allies. But when I look at this, I think for the United Kingdom, it is paramount that this ends in a victory for the United States and Israel, regardless of whether or not you think this conflict has value or was worth the effort or is against international law. For the UK, it's vital that they succeed. And simply that has to do with energy strategy and the fact that this administration, this government, Labour government and the previous government, signing on to net zero nonsense, put the United Kingdom in a really, really bad position when it comes to cost of living. And that's something, by the way, that this government is not prepared to pay for if oil and gas prices continue to rise.
To play devil's advocate for a moment, if you're Keir Starmer, perhaps you would want to avoid another war in the Middle East. I mean, energy prices are going up because of the action of Israel and the United States. Now, we can all talk about the despotic nature of the Iranian regime, but I suppose from a realpolitik perspective, there will be many people in Britain saying, yes, it's awful. Yes, they're run by criminals and crooks and deeply ideological, awful people. But at least it was relatively stable before this war.
Many people would disagree with that statement. But I think what's interesting also is if you take a step back and look at this with regards to, OK, Israel, Gaza, Russia, Ukraine, and now this situation with Iran, malign actors, 70 years of malign activity coming from Iran. It's targeted those here in the UK, in Europe, as well as in the United States, and of course elsewhere in the region. So considering the fact that this is a government that supposedly wants to keep citizens safe by suggesting that they're going to fly them back from the Middle East, despite a lot of opposition, right, for these expat issues, this is not a government who can stand on the sidelines. You can't abandon your allies in their time of need. And suggesting that they don't need to help the United States and help Israel at this point is just counterintuitive, simply because it's bad for this government, it's bad for the economy, and it's bad for the people of this country.
And it's such an important point to talk about that sort of nexus of various different conflicts. I mean, it feels like the Ukraine conflict is very far removed, but of course the Russians are using Iranian drones.
Yes.
Or we look to the war in Gaza, where of course
remember, these energy prices,
Iranian proxies.
Higher energy prices are very good for Vladimir Putin's war machine. But then there's the bigger picture of where's China in all of this? We're talking about the Strait of Hormuz, we're talking about oil and gas and where that energy flows to. It flows to China, right? 60% of that goes to China. Most of all of that oil and gas goes to Asian markets.
China's been quite quiet on this.
They have indeed. I mean, when take a step back and think about this. I mean, the idea that the United States is going to be convoying oil and gas through the Strait of Hormuz leaves them vulnerable, leaves them incredibly vulnerable to anything that the United States might then decide to do. Already with U.S. energy dominance, we've seen this president really moving in terms of making sure that the United States becomes the swing producer. You know, OPEC still controls about 40% of the world's oil, but at the same time, they've been on the back foot as a direct result of Donald Trump in terms of making the United States the biggest producer in the world, plus taking Venezuela oil and now potentially taking Iranian oil. So this is a president that's really realigning the dots. Now, what does that mean for China? That means that potentially they would have to be much more reliant on Russia, which would upend that relationship. We've seen Russia over the last few years being much more reliant on China, right? That might flip the switch. And no doubt those sitting in Beijing do not want to be that reliant on Vladimir Putin. So I think that if you take a step back and look at this sort of big picture, this is a Trump administration realigning the global energy dots.
Yeah.
And one would think that Keir Starmer and his government might want to be on board with that.
Absolutely fascinating. Well, Hadley Gamble, thanks so much for talking through what is an incredibly complicated web of world affairs, but I think we got some light through that as well.